One quiet morning, a small Chinese company released a free AI model onto the internet. By nightfall in New York, nearly $1 trillion had vanished from the American stock market. No launch event, no press conference, just a research paper and a download link. Silicon Valley had spent hundreds of billions insisting only they could build machines this smart. A small team in Hangzhou had just proven that assumption catastrophically wrong. The company was called DeepSeek. Nobody outside the industry had heard the name before. By the next morning, it was the most talked about company on Earth. This is the story of the fund manager who built it and the war it started. A war fought not with soldiers, but with chips, code, and raw computing power. Years earlier, Liang Wenfeng ran something far less glamorous than an AI lab, a hedge fund. His fund, High Flyer, used algorithms to trade China's markets, quietly and profitably. But Liang wanted to build the intelligence underneath the trading itself. In 2023, while American labs raced to build bigger chatbots, Liang redirected his fortune toward one goal: building an AI lab from a hedge fund's profits with almost no fanfare at all. He called the venture DeepSeek. Its mission: build frontier AI and do it differently. Where American labs guarded their methods like state secrets, Liang made an unusual choice. He published his research and gave many of his models away, completely free. It looked like strange generosity. It was also, quietly, a declaration of confidence. One enormous problem stood between Liang's ambition and Silicon Valley's resources: chips. The most powerful AI chips on Earth were made by one company, NVIDIA, in California. For years, Washington had tightened the rules on who was allowed to buy them. Washington feared advanced chips flowing into China could fuel military power, not just chatbots. Export controls tightened the ceiling above Chinese AI labs, cutting off the newest hardware. Most assumed this ceiling alone would keep China years behind the American frontier. DeepSeek's engineers were forced to do something Silicon Valley rarely had to: work with less. They rebuilt their training methods, hunting for every wasted second of computing power. Necessity, it turned out, was about to make them dangerously efficient. Through 2024, DeepSeek released capable models, admired inside the industry, ignored outside it. Researchers who tested them were quietly impressed. The public had never heard the name. Then, in January 2025, DeepSeek released a new model built to reason step by step. They called it DeepSeek R1 and claimed it matched top American models, far cheaper. At first, most of Silicon Valley simply didn't believe the claim. Surely, no lab starved of top-tier chips could compete with billion-dollar American labs. But developers worldwide were already downloading it, testing it, comparing results themselves. The results kept coming back the same: uncomfortably good, uncomfortably cheap and free. Word spread far beyond engineering forums, climbing toward the top of the tech world. By the last weekend of January, DeepSeek's app rocketed to the top of US download charts. Ordinary people were suddenly talking about a Chinese lab nobody had mentioned a week earlier. Investors who had bet fortunes on American AI dominance asked an uncomfortable question: what if massive spending on chips wasn't the only path to powerful AI after all? On Monday morning, that question hit the stock market like a shockwave. NVIDIA's stock plunged harder in a single day than almost any company in history. Nearly $600 billion vanished from one company in a matter of hours. Other chipmakers were dragged down with it, panic spreading across every trading floor. For one chaotic Monday, the entire American tech industry stared directly at DeepSeek. At the center of the panic sat one claim: DeepSeek trained its model for astonishingly little. Figures in the millions, not the billions American labs poured into their own models. If true, the entire economics of building powerful AI had been turned upside down. Skeptics argued the true costs were being understated or hidden entirely. Some suspected DeepSeek had quietly used chips it wasn't supposed to have. Others argued the innovation was clever engineering, not hidden hardware. The truth likely sat between the two, but the debate itself proved the point. For the first time, the world debated whether raw spending was the right way to win. That single doubt was worth more to DeepSeek than any marketing campaign. Inside the American labs, the mood shifted overnight from confidence toward alarm. Executives who promised investors an unassailable lead now faced pointed questions. If a chip-starved team in China could match them this closely, how safe was that lead? Some companies rushed out statements insisting their models remained firmly ahead. Others quietly accelerated research into cheaper, more efficient training methods. Massive planned data center investments suddenly faced harder questions from cautious investors. For years, more spending was treated as the only strategy that mattered. DeepSeek forced the industry to consider a second strategy, doing more with less. The panic passed in weeks. The uneasy question it raised did not. In Washington, the reaction moved quickly from surprise toward strategy. Officials had bet chip restrictions alone would keep China behind in the AI race. DeepSeek's success suggested that bet had been, at best, only partly correct. Lawmakers called for hearings and even tighter chip export restrictions. Others argued America needed to out-innovate China, not simply fence it in. One comfortable assumption had quietly died, that resources alone guaranteed dominance. The AI race had officially become bigger than a business competition. It became a contest between two governments, each certain their future depended on winning. DeepSeek, a Quant Fund's side project, had fired the opening shot of that war. By 2026, DeepSeek was no scrappy underdog. It was a serious frontier contender. Investors who once dismissed the company now competed fiercely for a stake in it. The company raised a staggering $7.4 billion in fresh funding. Its valuation soared past $50 billion, unthinkable for a company barely known 2 years earlier. DeepSeek used the fortune to do something deliberate. It doubled its own workforce. More researchers, more engineers, more firepower aimed at the frontier of AI. The scrappy underdog was building itself into a true frontier laboratory. No longer content to match the giants, DeepSeek now stood among them. Beijing and Washington were both watching the same company for very different reasons. For China, DeepSeek proved innovation could outmaneuver restriction, a point of national pride. For the United States, it became a warning that the old playbook needed revision. Both governments now treated frontier AI as a matter of national security, not commerce. Billions in subsidies and counter-restrictions followed, each side maneuvering for advantage. Chipmakers, once simple hardware vendors, found themselves at the center of global politics. Every new model release was now read as a move in a much larger game. DeepSeek never set out to symbolize a rising superpower, but that's precisely what it became, a hedge fund's side project, now standing at the center of the century's defining rivalry. Every side of this rivalry claims to race toward the same prize: safe, beneficial AI. But a race run this fast leaves little time for caution or agreement on rules. Cheaper, open models mean more people can build with powerful AI, for good and ill. Tighter restrictions may slow a rival, but rarely stop determined engineers finding another way. Meanwhile, the computing power both nations chase consumes staggering energy and capital. Resources that might build hospitals and schools are funneled into chips and server farms instead. No one in either country can say with certainty where this race actually ends, only that neither side seems willing to be the one that slows down first. Liang Wenfeng rarely gives interviews and almost never appears at the center of the storm. By most accounts, he still spends his days buried in research, unbothered by the spotlight. Around him, two powerful nations keep pouring fortunes into the race he helped ignite. If you want to catch every twist in this story, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you think this race goes next. Perhaps the real lesson of DeepSeek was never about chips or spending or even nations. It was a reminder that in a field moving this fast, certainty is the first thing lost. Wall Street recovered its $1 trillion in weeks. The doubt DeepSeek planted never fully left. Somewhere in Hangzhou, the work continues quietly, one careful model at a time.